Yo, what is up guys? It's Pedro here, and in today's video I will be talking about the top 5 free agents that I think the Washington Commanders should sign in free agency this offseason. So if you guys are new, make sure to subscribe for Washington and NFL content. I'm so close to 7,000 subscribers, so please help me get there. Also hit that like button and turn on those notifications. It really also helps out the channel. And go ahead and follow my Twitter. I'm trying to get to 1,000 followers on there. Now let's get right into the video. Okay, so we are a little less than a month away from free agency. So free agency content is going to start to ramp up on this channel. So in the comment section below, let me know any videos you guys want to see about the Washington Commanders free agency. So Washington has a decent amount of cap space, about $30 million right now. That obviously could change heading into free agency. There's going to be the rollover from last year, I believe, so that will give us a few $1,000,000 extra. Each team's going to have a little bit of rollover, or at least most teams will, but it'll be nice to get that cap space number a little bit higher. It also could be, lower if somehow we extend Terry before free agency, which I think it might be a little bit later, or let's say we re-sign J.D. McKissick, Bob McCann, any of those guys, our cap number could go down a little bit before free agency, but it's safe to assume we'll have about $30 million in cap space going into this, free agency period, and that's solid. I think that's top 10 right now. I believe we're like 8 or 9 in cap space, so it's a solid place to be. And that will be enough to fill some of our major holes. And, our major holes, in my opinion, obviously quarterback, that is the biggest hole on this roster. But, there might be some solid guys that can win us some games in free agency, but our quarterback of the future will not be found in free agency. We're going to have to look for a guy via trade, maybe one of the big names, but that's going to be hard to do. So if not, we're going to have to try our luck in the draft for the quarterback of the future. Some of the other biggest needs, middle linebacker is definitely a big need for this defense. Jamin Davis, I think he can play well at outside linebacker, but not very likely at inside linebacker. And Cole Holcomb is a good outside linebacker, but we still don't have our middle linebackers, so that is definitely a big hole. I would add free safety there is not a huge hole, but it is a position we could upgrade at. And I think receiver is another hole as well. There's a couple others, but I don't think there's, the biggest two in my opinion are quarterback and middle linebacker, and then you can throw in receiver and then free safety. So the first guy I think, this isn't in order, but just top 5 that I think would be good fits for Washington is Marcus Williams from the New Orleans Saints. He's one of the best free safeties on the market, still pretty young. I mean, he played his 5-year contract out with the New Orleans Saints, played in 16 games this past season, 72 total tackles, 2 interceptions, and he's been relatively healthy for his entire career. You look at his interception numbers, 15 interceptions. So, every year with 2 or more interceptions has a touchdown. Not really a sack threat. Some safeties are 1 sack in his career, but you look at the advanced numbers and they are very, very good, especially this past season. He allowed a 48% completion percentage when quarterbacks were targeting him. That is very, very good right there, and allowed an 85.5 pass rating when targeting him, which is also pretty good. Not as good as the completion percentage, but still very, very solid right there. And I think it would be a good fit in Washington. And his missed tackling percentage about 8%, which is pretty solid. And free safety isn't a huge need. I think Washington could survive with Bobby McCain back if they kept him for cheap. Pair him up with Cameron Curl, and you know what? That would be fine. But they definitely could upgrade the position. I think Marcus Williams would be a huge upgrade over Bob McCain, and if they can get Marcus Williams, I think it definitely would be a good signing for them to make. Although he wouldn't be cheap, it's going to be probably over $10 million a year for him. If you do that, you might have to make some moves elsewhere to free up some cap space, restructure Landon Collins' contract. I think that needs to happen anyways, but especially if you make a big signing, regardless of it, what position it is, you're going to have to, make some, contract restructures. I mean, every team's going to do it, but it's a way to make, more cap space available. So I think they can do that. And Marcus Williams, in my opinion, would be a really good signing. He's pretty young. I'm not sure the exact age, but 25, 26 years old. He plays a position where we could definitely use an upgrade at, and he had the best statistical season out of any of the free safeties that are available on the market. So I think he would be a great fit. And I think he was the highest rated free safety on PFF. The next guy, this is a low budget guy, not going to cost that much money, and he is a Dallas Cowboy, so I know a lot of you guys aren't going to like this, but it is Cedric Wilson from the Dallas Cowboys. Wide receiver position does need an upgrade, and this, I'm going to have two receivers in this video. One is going to be Cedric Wilson, who's kind of a low tier guy, and the other is going to be a mid to high tier guy. So just want to vary it up a little bit, switch it up. And Cedric Wilson, I really liked watching him play this past season for the Cowboys. Obviously didn't want to see the Cowboys win, but I did like to see what Cedric Wilson could do for that offense. And it played in 16 games, had 45 catches, 602 yards, and 6 touchdowns. And he played in an offense where most of the targets were going to CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper. And so I think I made a video about Cedric Wilson, or he was in one of my videos a couple months ago, where I said we should sign him, and someone was like, the only reason he had a good season this year is because he was the third or fourth option because Michael Gallup was down. And I was like, man, he's playing behind two of the top, one of the best receivers in the NFL, in CeeDee Lamb, in Amari Cooper. They're probably not elite guys, but they're pretty good receivers. And Michael Gallup did play for half the season, and he still was able to get 600 yards when he wasn't getting the same amount of targets as these other guys. And not only did he have 600 yards, but also add a little bit in the rushing game with 11 yards, and also as a passer, 3 passes for 88 yards, and he's a 5 for 5 career passer with a touchdown. Just something I found funny. Maybe Scott Turner can find a way to utilize him. He's pretty young, wasn't a early pick. This is played through his contract in Dallas 4 years, progressively got better every season, and I think this would be a guy that you're not going to rely on him to get 800, 900 plus yards. Yes, that would be nice, but he's a guy that, he's going to play solid regardless. But if Curtis Samuel or Terry McLaurin, God forbid, goes down, then you have a guy that can step up and be a solid number 2 or number 3 option. Because the last couple of years with Terry, once someone's gone down, we really have had no one behind him, we've had no one to help Terry McLaurin out when, it's really the last couple years, it's been Terry and everyone else, because he just hasn't had much help. Besides maybe Cam Sims, there's just not been much help for Terry McLaurin when someone does go down. Like, we were expecting Curtis Samuel to have a solid year for us, to help us out a ton. He goes down in training camp, and it's just Terry McLaurin and a bunch of nobodies. And, especially in 2020 with Robert Foster, Dontrell Inman, AGG, he had no help out there. So having someone like Cedric Wilson, who at the very least, if he stays healthy, he's going to have 500, 600 yards for you. And I think this would be a good signing for Washington. Take him away from a division rival, and I think you can get him for relatively cheap. So he's a guy I definitely would look for. Another guy, and I gotta learn how to pronounce his name, but Foye from the Atlanta Falcons. If anyone knows in the comments how to pronounce his name, I know someone already told me, but go ahead and remind me how to pronounce it, because I might have to get used to it. Inside linebacker for the Atlanta Falcons, and he had 178 tackles for them this season, 2 sacks, 3 interceptions. He's just an absolute monster. Also had a forced fumble as well. The year before had 4 forced fumbles, and obviously linebacker is a position in need, and he would obviously fill that hole for us. And, he's going to be one of the more expensive linebackers out there. So this is a little bit of a high tier option. But if, we can't go after him, there's a couple others as well that I like. Devondre Campbell, he's another high tier option. Leighton Vander Esch is another good option. Not going to be as expensive in my opinion as Foye or Devondre Campbell, but he would still be a solid option. We need to get at least a solid veteran out there, at the middle linebacker position. Quan Alexander would be a cheaper option. He's pretty good, but I think he's going to be cheaper because of the injuries. And if we can get him for cheaper, I would be fine with that. And, whatever. We need an upgrade at linebacker. I can't see John Bostic or David Mayo or anyone like that starting at middle linebacker. And, we could go in the draft and get a guy. But, again, that's a risk because you're taking a guy, in the first, second, or third round, and you're expecting him to start right away. That's a lot to put on a plate of a young guy. And especially when you have two young linebackers on the outside, I don't think that would mesh well. So I rather, maybe you sign a guy and you draft a guy to sit behind him, but I don't want to draft a guy and start him right away unless he's an absolute stud. And that's still going to be hard to do, but Foye would be a good signing in my opinion and add to our linebacking core and really complete this defense, especially if we can get him and Marcus Williams, but I do think that would be unlikely. So I'm trying to switch up positions. I only have two players, from the same position in this group, and obviously the next one is going to be a quarterback. And, obviously we don't want to go after a quarterback in free agency, much rather go after one in the trade market or the draft as well. But I'm just trying to give you guys my opinion on the best free agent quarterback in my opinion. That would be quarterback Jameis Winston from the New Orleans Saints. And a lot of people are sleeping on him, his past season at least, where he only played 6.5 games, but he did have 14 touchdowns, 3 interceptions in those games, and was 5-2. The completion percentage was low, which is a little bit concerning, but he played pretty well. He has grown under Sean Payton the last 2 seasons, and under Drew Brees as well in 2020. And I think he would be a good option as a guy where you bring him in and you also bring in a rookie in the first or second round, and they can compete early on. And if the rookie's not ready, play Jameis Winston. You can win games until the rookie's back. Or if the rookie is good to go, then that's great. Jameis Winston will just be an insurance policy, or you can just have Taylor Heineke as the backup. But I think that, pairing Jameis Winston with the rookie would be a solid move because, from the looks of it, it looks like they will, if they can't get one of the big name quarterbacks, they're going to go for Jimmy G. They're going to go for Mitch Trubisky and some of these other guys, maybe Teddy Bridgewater. I would rather go after Jameis Winston than any of those other guys because you're not going to have to trade for Jameis Winston like you are for Jimmy G. You're not going to have to pay him $30 million a year. It's going to be much cheaper, and, I think we can win with him. He is not, let me repeat, he is not our long-term answer at the quarterback position, but if you pair him with a rookie, I would totally be fine with that. You can still win in your first year, in the rookie's first year, by also developing him at the same time. The last guy is a little bit more of an expensive receiver, and that is Christian Kirk from the Arizona Cardinals. He's super young, I believe 24, 25 years old. Played in 17 games this past season, 77 catches, 982 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Played with Kyler Murray. He's been, had a solid year every year of his career. I believe he was a second-round pick. And, he's going to cost you a decent amount of money, but I think Christian Kirk would be a really solid wide receiver too. I mean, you look at his years, every single year at least 590 receiving yards, and his rookie year he only played in 12 games, so if he plays in 16, that's obviously way more than 590 yards, and he's been pretty good every single year. And who knows what he would do here, because these guys always usually end up being worse here, but I think he would be a good fit here. Almost 1,000 yards this past season for the Cardinals. You bring him in, you pair him with Curtis Samuel and Terry McLaurin, and then you have some other guys behind him in De'Ami Brown, maybe Cam Sims if he comes back, and DeAndre Carter if he comes back. That would be a really, really good receiving core, and we don't want it to happen, but if Curtis Samuel goes down, well, you still have Terry, you still have Christian Kirk, and some of the other guys can step, up. So I think that would be a really good insurance policy, because we're all expecting Curtis Samuel to ball out this year, or at least I am. I'm hoping at least, but we can't count on it for sure. We have to put some insurance policies in place in case he doesn't pan out, he has another injury-riddled year, or De'Ami Brown doesn't step up. So those are kind of my guys that I really am interested in free agency. Marcus Williams at the free safety position, Cedric Wilson as a low-tier wide receiver option, inside linebacker for the Falcons as our middle linebacker. And if we did have to draft or sign a quarterback in free agency, it would be Jameis Winston, and I would like to pair him with someone like Kenny Pickett or Malik Willis. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoy the video. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe if you guys are new, and turn on those notifications so you never miss the video. Peace.